Good morning. How are you? I'm really glad you're here. Thanks for coming and spending some time with us this morning in this wonderful adventure, this journey called unity. Or better yet, how about your life? Or better yet, how about your own spiritual awakening and unfoldment? Or better yet, how about just being in the presence of the divine and actually having that experience all the time? Cool. Wait a minute. You mean that really can happen? And the answer to the question is yes. That really can happen. And that's what we believe at Unity, because I don't know if you've figured this out yet, but we do things just a little bit different here. Why? Because we believe there is another way. We believe that you can really have this beautiful, incredible, amazing, spectacular, rich relationship with this thing called God. And it doesn't involve shame, blame, guilt, or judgment. So in other words, there is another way. Those things that you had, at least for me personally, when I was a child and I thought about this thing called God, to me was magical. And before anything got dumped in my head by religion and other people and all these authority figures, it was as pure as it could be. In other words, I love this thing called God. I love the relationship with it. And I would play with it, and I would dance with it, and it was real to me. And I could feel it, that expression, that experience. And it was magical. And then guess what happened? Religion, authority figures, and all these other beliefs started getting put into my head that I thought was the right way that I should be doing and handling this relationship with God. And as a result of it, guess what happened with my experience of the divine? Why? Because now I'm a sinner. Now I was born in original sin. Now I swear to God, if you miss one of the 7,500 rules that we've got up there, and you miss one of them, you're going to spend the rest of eternity in hell. What? Where did that come from? And it's like, I believed that. I believed it for a long time. Until I didn't. When I walked into those doors, not those ones, but when I walked into Unity and I heard Sorensen say, we don't believe in hell, we believe it's a state of mind. We don't believe in sin, we believe that's just where you missed the mark. And I started to open this idea of like, can I really return back to that relationship that I had as a child with this thing called God, or whatever it is that you want to call it? And by the way, I don't care. God doesn't care what you call it. It doesn't matter. I just had this magical relationship with this thing that I was so connected to. And for me, as a little kid, I call it God. And for now, I still call it God. For some people, that pushes their buttons. It's okay. Take a deep breath. It's okay. But I played with it and I returned to it because I was able to, with Unity's help and that understanding, I was able to return back into that relationship I had when I was a child. And that's when the fun started to happen again. And that's where the life started to happen again. And that's where the experience of the divine started happening again. Because when all of a sudden I realized I wasn't a worthless piece of you-know-what, and that actually I was loved, and actually I could be held, and actually God really was there, then all of a sudden everything changed. Everything started to change. And things started opening up to me that I didn't have access to, because that's really what happens is when you shut all of that stuff down, you simply don't have access to the divine trying to talk to you, which it is always trying to do. In fact, we're doing this thing this year called the calling. And what is the calling? Well, we're going to be talking about it. We have been talking about it. We're going to talk about it more today. But it's this idea that you're always being talked to by the divine. So it's never a question of if you're being talked to or not. It's just the question is, are you listening? That's the question. And that's what we're diving into this year. So anyways, this idea or the thought that you, little Oh, you, sitting in the chair, showing up on the Sunday morning and going, I'm just going to sit here quietly and just sit back and no one's going to bother me or talk to me. And it's like, I know Mike talks about this, and it's like, yes, you can have that experience. You can have it. Every single one of us can have that experience. Why? Because you're all divine. You all have a seed of the divine within you. All of us have that seed. But, right? It's a matter of what are you doing with that seed. It's like you've got this garden. Are you taking care of it? Are you watering it? Are you feeding it? Are you giving it sunlight? Are you giving it attention? That's what has to happen in order for this thing to grow. It's kind of like we got to go through this process, right? And that's what we do here. At Unity, we actually believe this stuff. We actually believe in the divine, and we actually use spiritual tools, prayer, meditation, affirmations, all the kind of stuff. We use that stuff. Why? So we can clean out all the garbage up here that tells us we're separate from the divine. That's what we do. And then when you start letting go of that stuff, then all of a sudden you can breathe. And now all of a sudden you start to feel this connection again, and it's amazing. It's really, 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 really fun. And then we get to laugh. Sometimes we get to cry, and we hold each other in the space. We create this container every single time we come together. We create this container for healing, transformation, power, love, compassion, all the above. And so as we sit here this morning, I'm just going to ask you, if you would, please, think about something you would love to share with the person sitting next to you. Whatever that is, whether it's love, healing, compassion, whatever you want to add to the soup that we're making this morning. Because your consciousness matters. On a collective basis, it matters. So as we're sitting there, think about what you would like to add to the experience this morning. Whatever it is. Just close your eyes for a minute and just say, yeah, I think I might want to add a little healing. Might want to maybe send out a little forgiveness. How about a little grace? How about a little compassion? Whatever it is that you want to add to this experience, please add it, because that's what we do here. We're creating this space on a collective level. Why? Because you're that powerful. You are the divine, which is amazing, and it's a gift. So, welcome. How many people that have been playing with this thought or this concept that I've been sharing with you this year about the calling? How many people are playing a little bit with that? Yeah? How's it going? Good? Yeah. Fun. So for those of you that don't know, I've had this inspiration for this year to do and follow this thing, and it's about this calling. And so this whole year we're going to be doing a deeper dive into this thing about the calling. And so we were talking about the 4 parts of it, which is sacred listening, sacred discernment, sacred action, and sacred embodiment. And so the last couple of weeks we've been talking about the idea of sacred listening. And so if you want to, you can go watch that on YouTube, just so you know what I'm talking about. But what we've been talking about is why listening is so incredibly important. And the reason being is because what I said earlier, which is we're always being talked to, but we don't always listen, right? And so I spent a little bit of time talking about this idea of silence. Where the listening happens is in silence, and how important silence is. Talked about it all last week, right? And I was saying some things about unity, that some of the foundational pieces of unity, silence is often thought to be the most important subject unity teaches. It is the most fundamental starting point of your own spiritual awakening. Listening, right? It's the most advanced of all unity teachings, which just cracks me up. I laughed about it last week. I'll laugh about it again today. Our most advanced teaching is what? Zip. Shut up and listen. Why? Because of what's inside of here. That's why we want to be spending time listening. That's why we do this thing, right? Charles Fillmore said, all power has its birth in silence. I love that quote. All power has its birth in silence. Silence is a state of consciousness entered into for the purpose of putting each person in touch with the divine mind so that it may listen to the still, small voice. Something's going on inside of here. What's up with that? What's going on? Myrtle Fillmore, when you get very still and go into the silence where you are communing with your own indwelling guide. Still small voice, own indwelling guide. And then finally, Emily Cady, who wrote Lessons in Truth, one of the basic unity teachings, books. Until there is a definite and a revealing of the reality of an indwelling Christ, you have not yet found the secret of the Lord. So when you look at those three things that I just said, still small voice, your own indwelling God, an indwelling Christ, all of them are saying the same thing, which is, go within. Go within. Every single thing that we want, everything, peace, transformation, healing, learning, understanding, whatever it is that your life is calling for is within you. That's why listening is so important. And that's why I started off this series with listening. It's the foundation, right? And so what I'm here to do is to talk about this idea of you developing your own, if you will, silence practice. I know that sounds a little bit clunky, but that's exactly what it is. How many people here have a quote-unquote silence practice? How many people? Handful, yeah? Anybody care to share what theirs is? I'd be curious. Who would like to share? Thank you. Yeah. So silence with a mantra and beads. That's Chris's practice. Awesome. Who else? John?
I get up before work every day and spend an hour in silent meditation, just doing breathing techniques.
So silent meditation and breathing techniques. Great. Mary?
That's where all my lyrics and melodies come from.
Got it. So Mary writes songs. That's where all her lyrics and melodies come from. Beautiful. So something is clearly happening when you spend some time in silence. And that's what I really want to talk about. How do we go into silence? What is it about silence? And how do we go about doing that, right? Jim, this is not working. That's all right. So first of all, let's talk about it. There's not one way to do silence. There's not. There's a lot of different ways that you can do silence. So let's talk about a few of the different ways. Go ahead, Jim. Okay, there we go. Cool. So one of the ways you can do it, meditation, right? How many people have heard about meditation? Maybe one or two people in Unity, right? Prayer, that's a way you can do it. Cool. Breath work. Somebody said, oh, Chris said breath work. Awesome. I love breath work. Breath work is an amazing tool to use. Contemplation, contemplative prayer. Some people use that. It works for them. Reflection, just sitting down and taking time to reflect. Many people know last year I went on a vision quest, the ultimate silence, out in the woods for 3 nights, 4 days, no food, hanging out with nature. And boy, did nature get loud. And boy, did my inner voice get loud, really loud, right? Journaling. How many people like to journal? It's an amazing thing to do, right? Some other ones. Listen to music. How many people love music? Yeah, beautiful. Draw or paint. How many people like to do that? Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Walks in nature. Oh my God. Nature, 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 nature. My friend, my beautiful, beautiful friend. Nature. Light a candle. Sometimes it can be that simple. Just light a candle and just sit there and look at the candle and see what happens. Read a book. I One of my favorite things to do is get up in the morning and pick up an inspirational book, and I'll just start flipping through it, and next thing I know, I feel like Spirit is starting to talk to me through the book. How many people have that experience? Yep. How many people like to do Labyrinth's Walk? You ever do that? Yeah, a couple of hands go up. Certainly Unity just had that huge one built in Unity Village where you can go out there and walk. It'd take you about an hour to walk through the labyrinth, which is an incredibly powerful thing for you to do, right? And finally, going on silent retreats. I know a friend of mine who does vision quests also does silent retreats up at her place, and you literally pay to go sit in silence. But it's powerful, powerful, powerful. So I hope what you're taking away from this is, oh, wait a minute. So in other words, there's more than one thing I can do to go into the silence. And the answer is absolutely. I'm going to share with you a book that was one of my favorite books. It was one of my favorite classes that I took when I went through the ministerial program. And the class was on meditation, but they used a book called The Meditation for Dummies. When I first saw the title, I did exactly what John just did, is I laughed. I said, you're kidding me. It's an amazing book. It's an amazing book. Why? Because it shows you all these different ways that you can actually go into the silence by using meditation, but then it talks about all the different ways that you can go into the silence. So it's an amazing book. So the key is this when it comes to going into the silence. It's not so much about how you do it. It's about your intention that you set when you go into it. So one of the things I would suggest is that when you go into it, maybe set an intention like, why am I doing this? Why am I going into the silence? Because there's a lot of different reasons why you might want to go into the silence. There's not just one, right? So set an intention before you go in there. My suggestion is, especially if you're just getting started, is to set the intention of connecting with your own still, small voice. That's not a bad place to start. So if you're just starting this process, not a bad place to start, right? So, I'm going to back up from just a small moment. So, the other thing I'm going to talk about is another intention, is just this idea of going into and having some inner stillness. Because in this process of going into the silence, what's happening is there's a stillness that you will get to, and that's what we're looking for. So when you're thinking about, well, how do I know if I'm doing this or not? How can I tell? It's like, because what happens is after you do it for a while, you'll start to develop this inner stillness and have this quiet. And the other thing that I would say is also we start to listen and we also start to connect. Those are the two things that start to happen when you do that, okay? What I want to spend a couple of minutes on this morning with you is what Unity focuses on when it comes to going into the silence. Unity has two, we've already talked about them a little bit, meditation and prayer. Those are the two big ones that Unity focuses on in terms of going into the silence. So, meditation. The purpose of meditation is to go inward. So what we're doing is we're shutting off all of this. And we're pausing for a moment and we're going inside. We're going inward. It is to still the activity of the individual thought, so the still small voice of God may be finally heard. You know, that's the biggest problem I hear often when people start this process of going within, the stillness. I can't calm it down, Mike. It won't slow down. It won't shut up. It just keeps going. No matter what I am doing, it's constantly going. And what I'm going to tell you is that at first, that is going to happen. Why? Back up last week, what did I said? The ego, the last thing the ego wants you to do is to be able to connect with your inner voice. Why? Because the ego wants control. It doesn't want that to happen for you. So what's it going to do? Let's throw everything we got at him or her. Want, 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 want. Right? So that's what the ego is going to do. So when you start this idea of going into the silence, and if you're using meditation as a tool that you want to use, which Unity uses, then just understand it's going to take a minute for you to figure that out to where you can really start to rest in it. And that's normal. Everybody goes through it. Moi went through it. I've just stuck with it long enough to where I can finally get into that space of quiet, that space of connection, that space of listening happens quicker. And I would bet if I were to ask the people that have been around here and have been doing this for a while, they would probably all say the same thing. It takes a minute to get there. You just have to be patient while you figure it out. And the other thing that I would say is that it's going to take you a minute to figure out what is the best way for you to go about doing it. Because we're all different. There is no one way. Again, what is your way? I don't know. But I promise you, if you set the intention like this is what I want to do, you will figure it out. You will figure it out. So just remember that. All right. So there's a lot of different ways to meditate, okay? You can do silent meditation. That's what tickles your funny bone. You can do guided meditations. You can do walking meditations. Wait a minute. You mean to tell me I can move and actually meditate? Absolutely, you can, if you set your attention to do it. So for me, one of my favorite things to do is go for a walk in nature. And nothing will put me into the silence faster than nature will. So walking in nature, yeah, I'm moving my body, but you know what? I can just really tune into Mother Nature. I can feel her, I can sense her, I can feel supported by her, and I can just do that. Really beautiful. Writing meditation, which is journaling, right? So you write. Oh, I can do that and actually go into the silence when I write? Yes, you can do that. Sitting meditation. Yeah, you can just plop your butt in a chair, which is the more traditional way that everybody tells you how to do it. And there's nothing wrong with that. For some people, it's really powerful and that works for them. And if it is for you, awesome. Do that. And last but not least, what I would say is a group meditation. So, you can see there's a lot of different ways even to meditate. And so, open your mind, open your heart, open your idea to this idea that, wow, there's a lot of different ways you can go into the silence, and if I'm choosing meditation, there's a lot of different ways to meditate. Yes, there is. And so what I'd like to do is a couple of things, mention tips in terms of meditation, and then what I'm going to do is we're going to go do a couple of them. Get small little tastes of them this morning, if you will. So when it comes to meditation, try to find a place where you won't be disturbed, okay? The most important thing when you start meditating is consistency. So just know that. Like, it matters. Like, if you do it once today and you don't do it again for 3 weeks and you spend 5 minutes doing it each time and then you come up to me and go, why isn't anything happening? I might ask you, hey, tell me what you're doing. Consistency is really super important. What my suggestion is to pick 1 or 2 different ways that you might want to play with it first. And by the way, please make this fun. Pick a way to do it. Like, make it fun, right? Pick something that sounds interesting to you that you would like to do. And then keep the same practice or routine until your meditation practice is firmly established. So once you figure it out, what works for you, then you can start playing with these other practices of meditation, right? The other thing that I would say is when you start doing it and going into meditation is let go of any expectations at first, because your ego is going to tell you the following. Trust me. Oh, well, it should look like this. And oh, it should feel like this. And oh, you should hear this. And oh, this is what should happen. So the ego is going to tell you the whole list of things that should be happening when you're meditating. Let go of it. Can it? Give yourself permission just to be in the silence for a little while and spend some time and start the idea of connecting with the small inner voice, right? Some other basic things: make yourself comfortable, try to be well rested. Yes, is it okay if you fall asleep occasionally when you meditate? Yeah, but you don't want to be doing it all the time. If every time you sit down to meditate you fall asleep, let's try and figure out a different way to do it, because maybe you need to do something else. Because again, the experience of meditation, the experience of going into the silence is where you're actually, there's this thing that's happening. There's this exchange of energy that's happening. There's a connection that's happening. Something is happening when you really start to meditate, and it's beautiful. And so if you're constantly falling asleep, which sometimes people do, let's have a talk, right? Some other things you might want to consider adding when you meditate. Candles. How many people like candles? I do all the time. Incense, or maybe some type of music. The only thing I would tell you is if it's music, you may want to consider music without necessarily any words at first. Because sometimes the next thing you know, you're belting out a tune that you love at the top of your lungs. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but it's not exactly meditation, at least in the beginning, right? So again, just certain things. The other thing that I would say is often when people start meditating, they try and do too much too fast. And I'm just telling you, as somebody that's a coach and a neuroscience geek, if you want to develop a habit that you've never done before, consistency is way more important. I'd rather see you start off with 2 or 3 minutes every day, do it every day, build that little tiny habit, because here's what I know, if you'll stick with it for a while, that 2 or 3 minutes is going to go into 5 minutes, is going to go into 10 minutes, is going to go into 20 minutes, and then we're there. But ultimately, what you want to do, ideally, is to develop a practice where you're in meditation for 20 to 30 minutes. Now, some people will go, well, I want to do it for 3 hours. Well, knock your socks off. If that works for you, some people do. But 20 to 30 minutes is really good. That should be the sweet spot that I would suggest if you have no idea, have never practiced meditation before, trying to figure out, well, how should I be doing this? What should I be leaning towards? What should I be wanting to accomplish? 20 to 30 minutes. And if you can get that, and you can do it even twice a day, even better, but don't freak out. Don't go, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to. Don't stop. What are we looking for? A couple of minutes every day. That's it. Whatever it looks like for you, okay? Meditation, going into the silence, can be done a lot of different ways, too many to count. And so a couple final thoughts about it. First of all, this idea of sacred listening takes place in the silence. That's where it happens, going into the silence. And my question is, how many people actually take the time to go into the silence? And there's no judgment here, folks. No shame, blame, guilt, or judgment. We don't do that here. But if you don't have some type of a listening practice, maybe it's time to consider one, right? Again, there's a lot of different ways to do that. Over time, you will figure out what works best for you. Again, consider creating your own practice. Consistency is the key. And start off with 5 to 10 minutes and then build up to 20 to 30 minutes. There's some thoughts. I want to share with you some of the other tools that I have used. And by the way, I'm sure people here all have your own tools, but these are some of the more popular ones that have helped me. There's actually an app that you can get on your phone. It's called the Insight Timer. Anybody use the Insight Timer? It's an amazing software. You can go in there and they've got guided meditations. They have silent meditations. The one that I love is I've created my own meditation where I've got singing bowls in the background, and then it's a timer. It bings me every 10 minutes or every 5 minutes so that I can do different things I want to do in my meditation, and it's all free. You don't have to pay for it. Yes, there's a paid side of it, but if you just want something to have on your phone to help you get started, it's an amazing thing. There's a million other apps on it as well. Oops. The book I already mentioned, unity.org. How many people like that meditation from Unity? They're smoking hot. They're amazingly cool. So you can go get one. They've got them recorded for the last 10 years. You can go pick one every single day if you want to. There's a bunch of them there, right? YouTube has a gajillion ways that you can go through meditation. So if you're looking for one, you're not quite sure, well, what should I be doing? You can pull up meditations on YouTube and you'll get lost forever, okay? Chris mentioned, I love using some type of beads, right? So what I can do is, especially if I'm using a mantra, I am love, I am love, I am love, you just hold it and then you just repeat it. I am love. And then I go to the next bead. I am love. I go to the next bead. I am love. And when you do that, you'll find yourself sink right into the silence over time. And again, there's different types of beads that you can use. And for me, I find that extremely, extremely, extremely helpful. An eye mask, some of you are very sensitive to light. An eye mask may be helpful, right? Candles, I've already mentioned, and incense as well. And so I think that this is going to conclude our little part about sacred listening. And I hope that what you take away from this is the important, if anything, is the importance of it and why it's so critical. Everything that you want is going to happen when you listen, everything. And yet it's amazing to me how many people don't do that. Even people in unity. They'll talk about affirmations, they'll talk about denials, they'll talk about all these other wonderful things, but nobody talks about listening as much as I really believe we should be. And so I hope this part of our journey into the calling emphasizes this idea of going in and listening. And so, having said that, I hope you learned something today. I hope you connected with something today. I hope that there was something here that you can take away and actually do something with. Because to come in here and be entertained by Mike, well, there's nothing wrong with it. It's like, look, if you're here to actually awaken, if you're here to actually have the experience, which all of the stuff that we're talking about here, so you can have your own experience with the divine, this is a tool, one of the tools that you can use to make that happen. And that's what we do here. And so thank you. Thank you for joining us this morning. You are all doing amazing work. You are. It's not easy to be down here. Some of you are struggling right now, and I know it. And for you, I just want to hug you and hold you and let this community hug you and hold you. For others, you are doing you're kicking butt and taking names. Well, you know what? That's perfect. So we've got this consciousness, this collective consciousness. Some are struggling and some are doing amazing. Isn't that cool? Then all of a sudden, guess what? The ones that are strong can hold the ones that are struggling. The ones that are struggling can be held. And then guess what? Over time, we switch. We're not always on the mountaintop, folks. We aren't. There's times when we all need to be held. So if you can remember that, it doesn't matter where you're at. We love you no matter what. And just know that you can be held in this community. You're powerful beyond your wildest imagination. Jesus said this and far greater things you shall do. That wasn't a mistake. That wasn't a misquote. He knew exactly what he was talking about. Why? Because he knew what was inside of you. That's why. And so dance with that and play with it and just know that we're really, really, really glad that you're here. Each and every one of you are a blessing to me in my life, and I could not be greater, more grateful than to have you in my life. So thank you for that. Have a beautiful, wonderful, amazing day, and we hope to see you again soon, okay? God bless.
Hey, it's Reverend Mike here. I just wanted to stop for a moment before you get on with your day and thank you so much for spending time with us this morning. It means the world to us, and I just wanted to let you know if there's anything that we can do to make your experience even better, please do not hesitate to reach out by going to our website. I also wanted to offer you the opportunity for us to get together and sit down so I could get to know you a little bit better and answer any questions that you have. I can either do that by either getting together in person, have a cup of coffee, or we can meet online via Zoom. If you're interested, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can reach me at michael@courage2thrive.com. And lastly, if you find these messages are helping you, we would be tremendously grateful if you'd consider donating to the center. The best and the easiest way to do that is simple. Just go to our website. Again, thank you so much. Hope you have a great day. Hope you're doing well. God bless, and we hope to see you soon. Bye-bye now.